welcome. It's awesome to have you guys here. We're gonna just jump right in. So this packet that we have, it has like our worship arts visions and expectations. We're not gonna go through it thoroughly, but what the purpose of this whole meeting is about is just it's a clarifying conversation of how we're going to approach our roles as as drummers. And you just use the our, even though I'm not, a drummer. I just speak about it that way. First of all, we're incredibly thankful, for your guys' involvement in our worship ministry, week in, week out. We get to do what we do because of your service, of your sacrifice, of your hard work, all your preparation. So we just want to say thank you for that. There's no but. So thank you. And as we kind of move forward, defining these roles, all it has to do is kind of how are we playing in the style, right? So since you guys been at Rocky Peak, we've had this doc, it's the vision and expectations. Anyone who's auditioned gets this document. We're just gonna sort of define it. And instead of reading it all, I just kind of want to go through that third paragraph. So like I said, we're gonna define what it's like to play the record, but also define the style. But I think that this is what we're hitting at right now. So the third paragraph says this: as a unified team, we prepare with precision and anticipate flexibility to serve our church effectively, right? So you guys have experienced this on the weekends. We're hey, here are the tracks, here are the resources, come prepare and play. And then, we as worship leaders, we change arrangements. You're oh, we want energy to be different this way, or we want, to let's do a double bridge or a double chorus or whatever. So even though we prepare for that precision, we're still open to flexibility based on what's gonna happen with the worship leader and the energy. And then continuing on, it says, learning and growing in our understanding of each song's form, chords, and dynamics so we can perform our parts with confidence, right? So what this, it really is, it's we want to, and we're going to say this later in the documents, where it's we want to master this style, and it's about knowing the sections, and it's even about knowing the sounds of the instruments, not just your role, but the other instruments. That's why it says chords, and understanding the form here. And what we want to do is we want to help define what the role of the drum is, and then keep each other accountable for that, because we're a whole band, we're just one part of the band, a very foundational, strong part, but we want to reach this part of unity. And then it says, this is the last thing, we use tools like planning center and playback to ensure musical cohesion while being adaptive to changes in arrangements or dynamics as needed. That's just kind of saying what I said before. It's here are our resources. So if you guys turn to that second page, we're gonna kind of define what we mean by play like the record.
Yeah, and so on page 2, and also what I love about that last paragraph is the playing with confidence piece. There's nothing when you came in prepared and what's happening, the form of the song, and you can just go and worship in confidence, and use your gift in that way. So, but yeah, what it means to play like the record. This means coming prepared to rehearsal, knowing the songs as arranged in the official reference tracks provided through Planning Center and playback, and having mastered dynamics and tones to ensure a unified contemporary Christian music style across all worship services. And so, a part of me and Logan and Ray's jobs, during the week, is to be providing resources and tutorial videos, or there's, these Planning Center MP3s, and providing the playback so that you guys have every tool you need in order to, execute what you have to do on the weekend. And so, and we know it's takes time to do that. And so if you guys were trying to find that on your own, it'd be so much harder. And so a part of our job is to provide those things for you to be able to execute those, the style really well. And so yeah, so use it to your advantage and use it as your preparation. And then yeah, having mastered the dynamics and tones, just like knowing like, oh man, like knowing the form of the song, knowing which like section you're gonna be playing and what area you're gonna be playing in on the drums. And so yeah, and then what does it not mean? It does not mean that we are robots, and it does not mean that we're not being creative. And I think there's even maybe a question in mind of like, oh, if we're playing like the record, then when do we get to play like us? And the fact is that we will learn these parts, but we will sound like us because we are human people. Like the way that we are playing the drums is going to be different, and there's a beautiful thing in that, where it's we're not asking everyone to like strike the same velocity with your arm. Like we're gonna check it on a meter and figure out like everybody is lined up. Like no way, there's not, like that's impossible. We would do that with 100 professional drummers and it would be different, and with the same part. And so like for us, like we know that like there is a human aspect, there is a worshipful aspect, that we're using this as a tool and an instrument to praise God with. And so we know that like we're not just like wanting like uniformity. We want unity as a team. And so to be united in learning it like the record, and then obviously like not being creative. I think for like learning it like the record like is the goal. Like if that's everyone's goal in rehearsal, then we get into rehearsal and that's where we get to be creative as a team. And so like if we wanted to make a change as a team, or if there was different chords for the band and that impacted a build, like that's a place that we can change some things around. And so yeah, that's like, obviously like when we come in knowing the record, knowing the form of the song, it's way easier to be creative in rehearsal. So
I would just want to add to that too. I think with like not being a robot and being creative, it's almost like when you learn these songs like they are on the track, you're building essentially like a library in your mind of like how you're hitting the drums, like how the worship drummers hit the cymbals, the tones that it's making when they do that. So you're really just building a library. And like you guys know, we don't play everything exactly the same when we show up on the weekend. But I think the goal is like you would show up and be 100% confident in what you are playing. And if Ray's like, hey, can you play it more like the track? You're going to know exactly what to play, even if you're making a creative choice to play something different. And then the second point on that, like be creative part, like I said, it's like you're building that library. Like when you are creative, when you make a choice, like you are still playing something that's consistent with the style, and that sounds like it's supposed to be there.
Totally. Ray, talk to us a little bit about the ultimate goal of unity.
So just like continuing down this page, the ultimate goal is unity. So in order to achieve unity, we need to do three things. And the first one is commit to the overall vision. And all this means is like we're committing to moving towards this sound, achieving the sound, achieving the style. And then that moves into the second, it's deliver on our role, right? So since we're committing to this vision, there's an expectation. You in your role are going to deliver, because all the band members are actually expecting you to deliver, but they're also like we also put that expectation on them. Like you want your lead guitarist to nail the lead guitar line. You want your bassist to play the right groove. So as a band, like we have this expectation to deliver on our roles. So we're just making that clear. It's like we're gonna keep you accountable. You're gonna keep each other accountable, and this is what it says: delivering on our role. Unity comes with trusting each member to prepare and perform their role. Lack of skill, preparation, or memorization creates disunity, forcing adjustments that break trust. And I'm sure you guys have experienced this. Like you have a keys player who they're not playing at least what you expect the keys range to be on the track. So you might modify your playing. Okay, let me play more of this so I can add, or let me play less so I could, troubleshoot. But what's actually happening, it's changing the dynamic range of the whole band, and we're gonna get through to this in particular for drummers. Like you making those changes are the most like costly, because you are the leader of the band. And like I said, we're gonna get into that. But what we essentially want to do is deliver on skill, on preparation, and ultimately memorizing, so that way we can build trust. And then here's that last piece. It says collaborating together, not as individuals. What we are doing is not a solo sport. It's a team sport. It is vital that when we choose to create, we are doing this in partnership with one another, not to simply improve or modify our individual section. When we choose to create apart from the whole project, it creates frustration and breaks down trust between sections, right? And I can't tell you how much this, like, just the examples I was giving, right? It's like when we modified a troubleshoot, like all the other sections kind of follow suit with that, you know? But also when we're creating parts individually, that same thing happens. It's like, oh, the bass now has to like change its groove or try to lock onto your groove, or like the same thing with the keys. Like the keys now has to be like, wait, that's not the right note the lead guitar should be playing, but now I have to modify that. So their preparation, it's like affecting their execution. So we want to, when we do make changes as a team, we want to do that by collaborating. So we're going to deliver on our role. Hey, and now we can collaborate. What kind of changes do we want to make? And that's what the next section just talks about. So here's the process we are looking to accomplish within our rehearsals. We begin with a shared vision, right? So the record is a reference for all the band members. It is the shared vision. If we are expected to play what's on the record, we can rely on one another to deliver. This creates chemistry. When we all come in knowing what's expected, it builds trust, creates chemistry, calls everyone to the same expectation, and builds confidence in rehearsal. And this leads to the gift of time, right? So you guys have been there when like we've locked on to a song and we're like, oh, we have like 30 minutes left. What do we do? You know, well, we can take a long break, or since we have that time, we can collaborate to be more creative. And that's what it's saying at the end. So this enables creativity. That gift of time leads us to more opportunities for creativity. Learning the parts, dynamics, feel, and tones on an intimate level will allow for creativity, improvisation, collaboration closer to the parts, dynamics, feel, and tone of the style, right? So that's kind of what we're asking, is like, we're going to learn the feel of what's happening in the record. So when we do come collaborate, or we add our creativity, or we want to add our voice, it's matching the style. And then the final note says this: these cannot go out of order. We don't have the time or trust for creativity if we don't build a strong foundation. Creative liberty will come as a result of learning the songs beat for beat, fill for fill, and will develop and ensure that our suggestions fit within the style we are trying to achieve, right? Oh yeah, so like, you know, like at the top it says, this doesn't mean like you're gonna be a robot. Your voice is gonna be in these things, just like Reed said. But this is the way I kind of been positioning it. It's like, you know, this is just a means to an end. When we're learning the parts fill beat for beat, we're dissecting, we are intimately sort of molding into the sound. So that way, when we do add our voice into that, it is going to feel appropriate. It's going to feel right. And so that's this page.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that too is, you know, like when I think about the record, you know, oftentimes I have to remind myself, like, these are professional musicians going into a studio. And I mean, maybe some of us in this room have gone into studios writing original music, and it's like, well, what is the perfect part for this section, you know? And so they're going in like through the verse to the chorus to the bridge, and they're like hitting what, you know, them and the team and the producers and the songwriters and the worship leaders are choosing, like, oh, this is like the best part for this song, like with guitar players, with bass players, with keyboard players, with drummers. And that leaves a lot of guesswork out of our lives in preparation, you know. So we don't have to guess what the bass player is doing if we are expecting the bass player is playing the part that he's gonna do. And so, like, you know, think about Son of Suffering, you know, when we're in that full groove and we're doing that bass drum groove, and the bass is like locking in with those hits on the bass drum. Like, if you're in rehearsal and like the bass player, instead of going dun 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 dun, if it was going dun 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 dun, like totally changes everything about the drums. Like you're like, man, like
Right.
this is like so different. I'm looking forward to locking in with you, and now it's that much harder to lock in. And so there's something beautiful about when we're learning everything like the track. Everything just like blends right in together, and it's so easy to lock in. And the best feeling, I mean, speaking as like someone who plays bass sometimes, like the best feeling is when you look at the drummer and what they're playing is what you're playing, and you're just like, dude, like this is awesome.
Magic
you know?
moment.
Yeah, it's really
Romance.
magic. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think too. There's a lot of times when you're like learning a song as a drummer, and like maybe you don't like dedicate enough time to learning that certain song. You can start to think of the parts as like just the groove. So like I know the groove, I'll move on to whatever is next. But if you don't take the time to like learn the actual song as it goes, you might miss like, hey, maybe that bass jumps up an octave, and that's where the drummer starts the build.
Right.
And so if you miss that bass jumping up an octave, you might not think it's a big deal to start the build there when you're playing it live. And then it's like, now something's happening and the drummer isn't fulfilling his job. So I think it's really important to like not think of your part as like just a drum track, like a MIDI drum track, but like think of it as a producer, think of it as like a worship leader. If you're gonna change something, like I always ask myself, like, okay, why did they do this thing? Like, why did they do the groove as they did it? Why did they put these kick patterns here?
Yeah. No, yeah. So that's super right on. Let's go back to the first page, and then we're going to kind of get into this session here. So we're going to go to the drummers section. It's all the way at the bottom, and it's 3 sentences, but we're going to define each of them through here. So this is what the first one says. You set the foundation... It says this. You set the foundational dynamic for each song and band member and execute the vision of the worship leader. Now, what does this mean? Like, I can't stress this enough. Like, you are ultimately the leader of the band, right? So, like, even if an MD calls out, like, build or breakdown, if you don't do it, it's not happening. Right? Because you're going to lead that dynamic. So whatever dynamic you set, that's where the band is. That's why it's incredibly important for you to keep the foundation and the essence of the parts in the track, because everyone is starting with the same reference. So you set the ceiling and the floor.
Yeah, so there's a couple words in here I think we should hit on. First, like you set the foundational dynamic. It's like, so clarifying what do we mean by dynamic? I was kind of thinking through that, and I am a photographer for work, and I was kind of thinking of, like, I love analogies, by the way. That's kind of like how I envision things. It's how I, like, picture life. And so I was thinking of, like, analogies for how I can explain dynamics. And I realized, like, when you are buying a new camera, you want a camera that has a lot of dynamic range. And so what that means is when you take a photo, that camera can capture, like, the brightest light or the darkest shadow while still retaining detail in that same photo. And I think that's like, kind of envisions what a drummer is. It's like, the song is the picture, like it has really high sections, it has really low sections, and you, the drummer, are the camera. And so it's like, how can I capture both the highest of highs and the lowest of lows with like the greatest detail? And I think that's like how I envision dynamics. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like on or off. You know,
Yes.
it's not like there's a picture and then there's not a picture. You know,
Yes.
there is like so much, and there's a lot of beauty in the dynamic. You know, like when, you know, like as a drummer, I'm sure like if there was a dynamic shift in like you're playing and you're hitting a tom groove, and the next section maybe it's just a tom groove but louder. Like that's, I think will speak a lot into those parts. You know, so yeah.
And we'll hit that a little bit when we go into like specifics, like playing through songs. A lot of times, like, you'll see dynamics progress through a song. I like to say, like, every song should be a journey. And so, like, one verse, if there's, like, a verse 2 right into a verse 3, like, if verse 2 is, like, 20% dynamic level, like, verse 3 is, like, maybe 30%. And so what that would mean is, like, pay attention, is the drummer adding, like, one extra kick? Or is he, like, playing the toms a little louder? Or is he doing the same exact groove but adding the rack tom as well? And so I think that's like an example of like going on a journey through your dynamics.
No, absolutely. Just like Max said, we're going to get into that in a little bit. but you know, like, because you are the leader of the band, and we're telling everyone, hey, come prepared, play like the record, right? Like, we want to come prepared with the original parts to help guide the band. Just like I was saying, like, if you want a lead guitar to hit that lead line and they don't hit it, the expectation of what's supposed to happen kind of gets lost, right? So that's how the band members kind of need like your roles as drummers to like help set that foundation, help lead that with them. But then we, again, like I said, we value flexibility. So each worship leader may request a different feel in section or from transitions from section to sections, and they rely on you to help lead the band in those sections while maintaining the overall feel of the style. And just kind of like an example I thought of was like the Blood, you know. So we were like, oh hey, come, you know, listen to these playbacks or these songs if you could before. And the Blood, it has this like side stick hit in the verses and choruses and stuff like that. So I'm gonna just play it right now, and Max will play along to it. But like, so this is the feel. It's like a spacious feel. It's very open, and you should be able to come play the original thing, you know. And I know you guys all know this, but I'm gonna play it anyway. So here we go. 2 bars in. The person I was before I encountered Christ, I don't want. Anyway, so yeah, like that's the original track, and everyone's kind of expecting you to lead that. But oftentimes, because we do value flexibility, you know, we're not like these robots. We value creativity. A worship leader will be like, hey.
Yeah, it's like, oh, like I want a tom groove. I want it to drive a little bit more in verse 2.
Right.
But like, how can we do that while also serving the bass player? You know, because the bass player is gonna have to shift too. And so like, so Max, like if I were to tell you like, hey, like I want a tom groove here, what are some ways to like keep it consistent but not, you know, like get too busy as a verse 2?
Just try it.
Yeah.
Example. Yeah, let's do it.
Verse 2, 3.
Yeah.
And what I like about this example especially is like when you think about that rim shot, you know, what you're doing exactly, like you're doing the whole note on the kick drum and then you're keeping the hi-hat, but then you're adding those toms for the energy. So the bass player is still thinking, oh, that's what's happening on the foundational of the kick and the hi-hat, but you're adding the energy with that without making major changes to what that groove will feel like.
Yeah, and the space is still there. Like we're gonna go into kind of like what the style asks for in a second, but this bass exists in the same, it is a little bit more drivey, but like there's not a lot of presence in what's happening. It's still space, right? So we're gonna do this same thing, but the first 4 bars do the side stick, and then the next 4 bars do the kick. But pretend it's the beginning again, you know? So don't do the additional kicks and stuff like that. So here we go, 2 bars. Chorus.
Then we'll switch right here. Totally.
Right. Yeah, so it's like keeping that same foundational like presence, that open space, even though the part's different. But that's like the flexibility of the worship leader, and you lead that feel. So that's kind of the first thing, and it's incredibly important. You know, you are the leader of the band, and you partner with the worship leader to.
Yeah, I think I would add too. It says where the part where it says you execute the vision of the worship leader, I think that is like super important in like my heart when I go into a weekend. Like I understand that like when we're in a song, like as a drummer, you're leading it, but ultimately it's not my vision. And like I understand like if Reed says, hey, this is my vision for the song, like it's your job to lead the band well in that. And so I think like I come in and my heart is almost like leading the band in a place of submission to our leadership. And I think that's just like a really big part of what worship drumming should be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So then we go on to that kind of second sentence. It says this: you understand and execute the essence, feel, and style of CCM drumming. I want to stay here for a while because like we want to help define this, like, okay, what's the style of CCM drumming, so what does this mean? CCM in general is ambient, showcasing the voice and the lyrics for congregational singing. So like when you think about kind of how you're adding parts, first of all, you're thinking about like, I'm adding it to like this open space. Like the foundational sound of this genre is like the 1 in 5, the key, that pad, that pad that you hear every time. It's just droning. Well, that's really the foundation. It's giving the key to the congregation. It's like, hey, we're gonna sing here. We're gonna sing unified. So like, how are you adding to that? And it is about adding space.
Yeah, I'd say what's really important is when I think about like what we're doing, like we're leading the congregation in a time of worship. And so if you think about that, like what is the congregation's like main instrument of worship? It's singing. And so the goal is that we're helping these people like get into a time of worship with God and like create that atmosphere where they can do that without distraction. And so I think when you're thinking about drum parts, it's really important that we understand how important the instrument of the voice is and like how out of the way we should be. When I think about like what you were saying, the essence of contemporary Christian music drumming, I would say, like you said, it's ambient. And how I would describe that is pretty much just like, imagine like white noise, like background, like you see that a lot in your cymbal swells, like you'll use the edge of the stick a lot. It'll be super washy. You see that a lot in the toms too, like not super attacky or in your face. And when I picture like, picture the cymbal tone. When I hear like a cymbal swell, I almost envision like a wave crashing. Like it can be really loud and intense, but it's also soft that it's not piercing. The opposite would be like if you drop a glass on the floor, like shattering glass, that would be like kind of the opposite of ambient. And so, yeah, I think a lot of times when we think of drumming is like, it's super similar to like a shaker, just like super ambient, like not in your face.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, like, I mean, since we're all in kind of like this idea of like cymbal washiness, like something we always do, like it's just swell, like, oh, let's swell into like the downbeat or something like that. Yep. So what does it sound like to swell into the downbeat?
Yeah, you want to try?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sweet.
Or you want me to start from a section or whatever? Yeah, all right. Let's go into this chorus of the blood. Okay.
Chorus 2, 3.
Right, and I know, like, oh, you guys have swelled countless times because we tell you swell or whatever.
Is there like a version of that like would be like too much, or like that like glass on the floor sound?
Yes.
Like could you like
let's do it.
Show that a little bit?
Let's try it.
Sure, totally. Yeah.
Right.
So I think the big difference is just like in that, like where you're hitting the cymbal too. If you're hitting it with the top of your stick, like it will create a pingier sound. Also the hi-hats, if they're open that much, you get a lot more of the kind of voice of the hi-hat. and you get a lot less wash.
Right.
And so that will project a lot more in a room like this versus the first one, which will just kind of be like a crashing wave, that shh sound.
Yeah, so like you want to really save the kind of articulation you're making. Like when you swell in, you don't want to go. Bah. It's like you're having this white noise, this wash, like you're saying, and it's like the strength of it gets stronger to the downbeat, but it's not articulating. It's not going like crashing down on that.
Yeah.
So, but another like cymbal technique we say all the time, we ask you guys to do all the time, is like cymbal feathering. So it's like when we say, hey, feather, what's the like, how would you approach doing a cymbal feather?
Yeah, so I think a cymbal feather can be, it can be a little more articulate. You can use the top of your stick. I keep saying you can. It's not like you can or you can't. I'm just trying to pull from like contemporary Christian drumming is what they're doing, by the way. So they use the top of their stick a lot more, but it's still like super laid back, like not in your face. And so, yeah, I would say like a good example would be like, say the worship leader says, hey, let's go into that chorus one more time at the end of the song. So yeah, let's try it. Like what would an example of cymbal feathering be?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and like from this angle, like what is not happening is like a lot of articulation with the tip of the stick, but mostly kind of the neck area, and then like kind of making it more washy, and then you have articulation like sporadically through those featherings. Yeah.
Like, how do you decide how much rhythm you're putting in the cymbals? So like out for the feathering, like are you doing like, when do you add like a 16th, or like when do you add like a little pizzazz or something, or is it like truly like sticking to quarters? Is like, yeah.
No, I'd say it really depends on the moment as well. A lot of the times, if I'll notice the congregation is maybe falling off time or the band is falling off time, I'll add in the timekeeping on the ride a little more. If not, I really like to keep it sparse on the actual time, keeping like 16th notes and really be more swelly.
Yeah.
And so I think also like as much as you can make that journey noticeable in a song, like, hey, I'm not constantly keeping time, is like a really relaxing thing for the congregation, is like, oh, they feel like we can relax a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, and that totally supports what you're talking about. Like, where we're like, this is different than any type of music that, like, if you're gigging in other areas, right? Like, if I was in a rock band, I'm serving myself and I'm serving the song and I'm serving the band. Like, that's like kind of the people that we serve. But like here, it's so different, like, and I would even say like, more important than, well, the top thing is that we're serving God with everything that we have. But more than even serving the music or the song or the worship leaders, even, like, we're supporting our congregation, And what I love about what Max just said, like, oh, he's keeping them in time, like, there's a latency between, like, the room and then us, and so the fact that, like, we're keeping them in time, that means that we're not going to fall off in time as a band, and so I think that's like a really cool thing that we get to do, that week in and week out, that we are serving God's people in worship. Yeah.
And I think a big thing too is like knowing your band well, like knowing who you're playing with. I know like oftentimes like we have really amazing players, but sometimes if like, hey, we have a keyboard player that struggles to stay on time, or like a guitar player that struggles to stay on time, like making sure you're attentive to keep time in those moments where it's like just keyboard or just guitar led is really important, because if you decide you're gonna do more washy stuff or off time stuff, then they can be thrown off, and then the whole band's thrown off.
I mean, more than ever too, it's like we're playing with tracks, and so even if we're a beat off, we will be we'll be somewhere else, that's for sure.
Yeah, as you're doing articulations though, like you're still reinforcing the space. You're giving that time and that washiness with like articulation every now and then to reinforce time and to keep it in the space and the feel. Yeah, so the next thing, since we're on cymbals right now, I think I want to talk about like hits, So we call hits all the time. Like, like hit, you hear the music director say hit. And like how these are executed, I think at least in this in this style is it actually has like a lot of control, you know. Sometimes I think when I've described it before, it's like I just kind of pound on like the cymbal, you know. But that really that really has it like wobbling, and it also doesn't have a lot of sustain when you like attack super hard. So I just want to play like Son of Suffering. Let's just do that bridge section. So 3 bars into it.
Here's a break. Glory to confidence.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, so like, you know, I used to imagine those just like slam it, you know, but it really has, it's not like this 100% thing, even though it's like an 100% moment.
Yeah, a lot of the times when you hit a cymbal really hard, it almost like chokes it in a sense, so it almost makes it crash like faster. Not only that, you get a lot more wobble, and it can be hard to come back at you and hit at the right spot. And then there's stuff like you want to make sure you're taking care of your cymbals and like not hurting them. But I think the most important thing with like hits like that is consistency, like making sure that every hit is the same velocity on the cymbals. And so if you're kind of wavering, then your hits might not hit as hard.
No, yeah, true.
Yeah.
You know, since we're on this part, like about the essence and feel, let's just kind of move to the rest of the kit, you know. So like, how would you define what the feel is? Like, what's the kit doing?
Yeah, so I would say like openness is like the big thing. We'll hear like open grooves talked about a lot. And I think like that is language that is a really big thing for us to all like understand and get on board with. So if Ray or Reed or Logan or Lauren or whoever are like, hey, can you play that groove a little more open? We know like exactly what that means. And so usually if you're in like a big section, that'll be defined by like really washy ride, like driving the song, solid backbeat. So like your kick and the snare are like really solid, and also just like not a lot of notes. Usually like the less notes you're playing, the better. You can hit harder, you can be more intense. And also I think a big thing with that is like it allows the sound engineers to turn you up more if you're like playing less notes, because a lot of the style of drumming is defined by like a lot of reverb. And so if you think of it like you're a lead guitarist, like if you're just playing, spamming a bunch of notes with a bunch of reverb, it's gonna get really muddy really quick. And so like the simpler you play, the harder you hit, the more consistent for those parts, the better.
No, yeah, for sure. You know, so like even in like the Blood, right? It has this like tight hat and like side snare feel. Like even though that is a tight groove, there's a lot of openness to it. You know, like because it's not. The articulation isn't hard. It isn't harsh either. It's like round and it's this softness. So whenever there are these like parts, that's really the consideration of like what kind of space, what kind of tone is this like drum doing. And you guys are super familiar when we're like, oh, let's switch that to a tom groove, you know? Like that's because, you know, we're removing the hat and maybe like a verse section because it's cutting through the vocal range, right? The hi-hat usually does that. It's in the same range, it's cutting through. So it can get distracting or it can just become like a loud sound in the mix. So that's why we kind of have like these open tom grooves in this style.
So I'm not a drummer, so this is not a drummer question. Okay. Something that you do all the time when you're playing is that you're doing the hi-hat and you're opening and closing it. Like, what are you trying to emulate with that? Because that's so, like, I feel like for, you know, like, that could be a lot of different ways. With brighter cymbals, you can, like, you know, do it in a certain way. So, like, what is, like, your approach to, like, using your cymbals or your hi-hat and like appropriately.
Yeah. So fundamentally what I'm trying to do with that is like keep time, but I want it to sound like a shaker in my head. Is like I want my hi-hat to sound like shh, shh, shh. And I don't really want it to sound like an electronic like beat. And so I think you would notice the difference where I hit the hi-hat right here. I'll just show you guys. And so, yeah, there's a lot of difference in that articulation of like high end. And so shakers often don't have a lot of that like sharp high end.
Right.
And so when I'm playing a groove, a lot of times with my foot, I'll keep time with my hi-hat, but not like stomping it super hard.
Sure.
I'll just give you like an example real quick.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah. That's cool. Thank you for answering my not a drummer question.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of want to stay a little bit more on grooves, and I want to kind of touch on like 4 different levels of grooves,
Yeah.
right? That you could do. So let's stay on the blood or whatever.
Yeah, good song.
Yeah, it's a good song. And let's like do that. Let's just say like it's a first chorus where we want, again, this space it's like the whole genre of this is asking for openness. What would be like a first level of that? It's sort of a broken down chorus, but not entirely broken down. We want you in a little bit.
Yeah. So real quick, how would you define the original first chorus with the hi-hat and the rim? Would you say that's a level 1? Or
Yeah.
that's maybe level 2?
Yeah, I think because of the way because of like the openness of it is like a level 1.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of what I hear brings the presence of the drum is like the kick.
Yeah.
You know, so the kick is not being articulated. It is driving a motion. So not emotion, a motion. And like when the space is open for your kick, it's offering like those levels. And this song, I feel like it's like a level 1. Would you agree,
Yeah.
disagree? What do you think?
No, yeah, I think it's great. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. What if you did one that's not like the track, right? So what would be like a level 1, not like the track of the blood?
Yeah, I think a level 1, not like the track, could be like
like a-
cymbal feathering, like keep time on the ride, little bit of feathering on the hi-hat.
Yeah.
You want to try that?
Yeah,
real
sure.
quick?
Chorus 2.
Yeah.
Again, the way that you're hitting that hi-hat is resembling that side stick in a really cool way.
Yeah. It's kind of keeping those downbeats where they're at while doing something a little different.
Yeah. So let's like do like a level 2 kind of deal,
Yeah.
you know? So you're still in the open space because that's what this genre requires. So we're going to pick it up in dynamic and we're going to pick it up in parts like a level 2. 2 bars. 1, 2. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, I mean, you know, I think what I'm noticing is like your kick pattern's the same, right? But obviously you added like some more toms to kind of bring that out, but it still feels like open.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's try. Well, you're gonna say something?
No, that's great. I think we can hit a level 3. and
Yeah.
see how that
What
goes
would
too.
that be? What would that be? All right, here we go. 1, 2, chorus.
Dude, nothing like 4 on the floor, man.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those toms really keep that that hi-hat and like side stick pattern. The toms kind of take the place of that, doom doom, hitting right where those snare hits would be. And so yeah, I would say if your worship leader was like, hey, bring it up a level, like that could be somewhere great to go.
Right. Yeah, and also like, we only kind of went through 4 bars, but usually each section's like an 8-bar section, right? So like you'll see in all these songs we're gonna get through like some more examples, but like it's pretty much the same from the beginning of the section to the end of the section. And the only thing that changes if it's like that last 4 bars is like, oh, I'm going to get to a dramatically different section, or like the last couple bars is a small sort of fill or a tighter fill into the next section, so it doesn't change drastically. It's very consistent. Yeah, so what about like a level 4 openness? I mean, I'm just calling these levels. You can call them whatever you want, like percentages.
Like an open groove.
Yeah.
In this,
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, like you're gonna, hey,
like
this is
chorus.
Yeah, like last chorus, big thing or whatever kind of deal. Let me give you that last chorus. 2 bars. 1, 2. Yeah.
Yeah, something I'd like to point out that's really funny is like if you compare that beat to the hi-hat side stick groove, it's the same exact beat. Mm-hmm. And so like a lot of times like the drummer will duplicate the same beat onto the later part of the song, but the intensity on everything else is building. I was here last night for the lead guitar one, and I think I kind of got this idea from what Reed was saying, is that a lot of times in lead guitar, they use pedals in order to build intensity and dynamic. And so say like they would add like a gain or a saturation. And I realized that really your ride cymbal or like an open hi-hat is pretty much adding a pedal, adding an effect to bring up the intensity of your groove. And so a lot of times if you think of it that way, you'll realize it's the exact same groove, but just played on a ride and just like hit harder, maybe farther down the stick, creating like a open washiness. And yeah, I think that's like a huge part of it.
Yeah, in the guitar world is gain staging. You're adding a pedal for stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. What we just did is that's gain staging almost.
Right.
It's like we're adding more intensity to the music. We're adding to where things are going to cut through more. That's going to bring the energy up. And so that's in the guitar world and frankly, like I'm probably gain staging at the same time that you're leveling up, like which is pretty fun, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times if you stick to the dynamics that are in the track, like Reed was saying, like a lot of these songs are like perfectly formulated, like they've worked on these for months. So a lot of that guitar gain staging or like hopping up the octave is really built into like when that drummer is going to the next level too. And we'll hit on this later, but like that goes into like tension and release and like transitions and stuff like that too, but it's super important.
Yeah, let's hit on it now. So like when we're thinking about this section and thinking like that stuff, like what's kind of happening in between those things, like, okay, let me make it, break it down a little bit more. So let's say there's a verse, right? And that verse is like 8 bars. And then there's like a verse again, right? It's like what's happening between that section and then like what's happening between the parts.
Yeah, so I'd say section to section, like I was saying earlier, like you want to challenge every song to be like a journey, and like every part is building on the last. So I think like What a Beautiful Name is a really good example of like how the drummer adds little piece by piece. And if you were just to play the groove, like you probably wouldn't pick up on it. But if you were really intentional, like what is the drummer doing? You realize like he adds more hi-hat, he adds more kick, he adds an tom. Or she. Could be she, dude.
Emma Tiny. Just saying.
Tiny.
I know. Just used to play drums.
You never know.
Could you show that with Beautiful Name? Like, so you're saying they're adding something every time. Like, could you just like kind of play through a certain part of that?
Yeah. So, what I want you guys to like pick up on is like in that first verse, like how many times the kick is hit, how many times then when it's repeated does the drummer add the kick, like when does the hi-hat start going from quarter notes to eighth notes? When do you add the rack tom and stuff like that? Just to try to realize what that journey looks like.
Yeah, let's go through the verse and even into the chorus, because each of those sections like change. But just to help spell it out, it's like just one change, but that one change is pretty significant. So here, 2 bars into that verse 2 of What a Beautiful Name. What heaven without us? What a beautiful name it is. Yeah, so break that down a little bit,
Yeah, so I think the first thing is like you get that foundational groove, which is like doom, 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 doom. And that kick is like 1 a bar. And then he goes to like 2 per bar in, I don't know if it's really going into another repeat verse or if it's just like halfway through. But nonetheless, like he's adding another element, which is like really hard to pick up on, but is really just building the tension into that next section. And then when you get to the chorus, he's going 4 on the floor, and he's also adding the rack tom, but not as an extra note. He's adding it in the same spot to complement the floor tom, to sort of bring up the whole foundation of the whole song.
Yeah, like the tone that's added to the space is like bringing up kind of like that dynamics just with, because I mean, it's completely different, right? You got this low sound, and now you have a sound that's like more round and kind of cut through just a little bit more.
Totally. And what's beautiful about it is that there's a pattern being played, and the best part about a pattern is that you know what's coming next. And so like as a bass player, it's like, oh, I know what's going to happen. Like it's the same groove, I'm just adding to where the beats are happening. And so like it's way easier to play with when it's like, oh, I can predict what's happening next. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that, like, I kind of just want to listen to like I Speak Jesus. So no need to play there. No need to play there, Max. We'll listen to I Speak Jesus, kind of what the drums are doing, just to kind of get that same picture. It's like things are from one section to another section. There's like just one piece maybe being added, So here's I Speak Jesus. Dun. Here's to that verse. 2, 3, 4. I just want to speak. And here's like that reverse, introducing the snare. So like there's that openness, it like omits the first bar, and then the next it brings it in.
He's also accenting on the cymbals too. He's kind of crashing on them too.
Yeah. Here's that chorus, 2, 3, your name is. Yeah, so like it's pretty spot on to like what the verse was doing before. It's like just building one thing at a time per section, And in those sections there are like those little fills, that help tell the band, oh, we're moving on to like the next section,
Yeah, I think of like fills and transitions. In my mind, it should almost be like a hint at what the next section should sound like. It should be like a lead-in, but as much a hint. So say you're doing like a hi-hat snare groove, and it's like a closed hi-hat, and then you go into a groove that's like on the right in the snare. what I would start doing is like on the last couple beats of that song, like I would start opening up the hi-hat a little bit, because you're hinting at a little bit bigger of a section, versus if you're in like a really big moment of a song and you want to come down, like you need to start pulling back your dynamics a little bit to hint to the band, hey, we're coming down here.
Yeah, totally. So let's talk about a little bit about like fills between sections. So you just mentioned like you're hinting at it, but I think that a lot of in this style, yes, that hint is like leading the whole band, you know, because as drummers, like that's the role that we're doing. We're like leading the whole band. But you know, we've talked about this, like there's a dynamic between like tension and release, you know. So when we think about approaching fills, it has that in mind. It's like, you know, this song, I mean, this style, it's the same every time, right? It's like the cinematic feel. It either starts big and then goes to a broken down chorus or verse, or it starts at a broken down verse, right? It's like the same thing. And at some point there's a build and then there's a climax. Copy and paste, you know? So like when they're building that tension, right, the fills are doing that exact thing.
Yeah, I would say also worship drumming is similar to like, it's like super like anthem music a lot of times. Like it's super similar to like an orchestra. Like it's big group, like a lot of reverb. And a big thing in like movies and like soundtracks that will use an orchestra is they will build that tension a lot, and it's like, oh, it gets your heart racing, like what's coming next? And so I think that's a big thing in dynamics, but also in fills. And I think that's why it's like super important to like really reserve yourself a lot of time in fills. Because if you just like between verse 2 to verse 3, or from verse 3 to chorus 2, if you hit like a super sick fill, like all that tension you're building is just like, oh,
yeah, it's going to be super sick. Right.
Yeah, but like, all right, where's the tension now? Because it just released.
Right.
And so, yeah, like I like to really reserve like cool fills with like lots of notes for like maybe once in a song, like maybe even once in a set sometimes. Because I think like it's super important for like the foundation of where your song is going.
I'm gonna ask you a spiritual question. Like, so self-control, fruit of the spirit. Like, how are you practicing self-control in that? I feel like if you had the chops and you're like, oh, dude, I could just rip it, you know? Like, I could do something crazy. Like, how are you choosing those moments, like, effectively? So you say, like, once a set or once a song. Like, what is, like, how do you decipher between which song that's gonna be the moment? Because really, I mean, you maybe could rip on every song. So like talk to me about that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so I think it's really important. One big thing is a lot of times like the fills I choose to play are like not necessarily like the fills I can do. Like I don't want to always be playing fills in a worship set to like the top of my ability, because like what I was talking about earlier is like that can get in the way of people singing. And so really, if my focus is like, in worship, I want the congregation's eyes to be on Jesus. If like their eyes all turn to me for a second, is like, okay, I'm stealing the spotlight from Jesus. And like, I think that's a big thing in my heart. And I think a lot of times I tend to even like be on the side of like too cautious. Like maybe I won't do fills, then I'll watch the set back and I'll be like, oh, that's pretty lame.
Right.
Dude, if I had the skill, I would just be ripping so much. But yeah, good for you. Yeah.
But I think it's like really important to also like be aware of the song you're playing. Like if you were playing like Goodness of God, there's a lot of like so if you were to do like right? Like if you're like, what the heck just happened?
Right. I mean, it sounds cool.
It sounds really sick.
Yeah.
And I'm sure every drummer here could do it, but it's like, yeah, just being aware, like not playing maybe at your full potential in fills.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so going back to like this idea of tension and release, I just kind of want to do a couple examples just for fun, right? So usually the biggest tense part of the song is
the outro. Just kidding.
No, No,
The last bridge, especially. Yes,
right.
yes,
Yeah, the
yes.
bridge, right? Because like we're building into like this big, full, open chorus, you know. So just as a example, let's do "I Speak Jesus." Let's stay on that very last bridge, and then let's think about like just do a fill in the style that has like that tension that's kind of building that tension, and it releases to that big chorus. So 2-bar count into the let's do 2-bar count into the last 4-bar building, you know, so it's not that long. So 4-bar building, tension, release, right to the big chorus. So 1, 2. Oh, sorry, the click's muted. That's my bad. That makes sense. You would be horrible. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 1. Jesus 4. Yeah, so I think that's a really good one because like you're keeping the openness and you're like giving this moment of, like I said, like the tension is releasing already to get you to that.
And if you listen to the like original fill like, in the song, that probably wasn't it, but it's probably pretty similar. It really was just like. It's like maybe isn't the most like epic thing in the world,
right?
But they're doing a break there, like it'll show that we're going into that.
Yeah. All right. Just because my brain is thinking of things. Why don't you do the Son of Suffering fill, or sorry,
yes,
and then like break on the 4 or whatever into that same
It's
section.
the same thing.
We ask you guys to do this all the time, you know, because it's totally in this style. So 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, and then you go to that open group. Okay, let's do it again. This time do what am I thinking? The 16th. Well, just do that like like the snare build into that.
Yeah, like that.
No break. Yeah, like the blood does
blood
it.
kind of
Yeah,
that,
the blood does that into that. So same place. 1, 2. First of all, that's probably like my favorite build in the style, you know, because it's so much. It's like, I don't know. It's like if
it's building the tension.
I took drugs, I just, you know, feels good.
How many of those do you get in a set?
Oh, I'll do those. I'll do those.
Right,
yeah, I think like every song at least has one, you know, like maybe something like that, you know.
Yeah, and I think like that's something where it's like it is building the tension.
Right.
But if I was to do something just like really random and like really fast, it might be like, okay, like why did that drummer do that if it's not building the tension?
Can we hear that? Can you just do some
sure
crazy fill? Doesn't make sense. Just because I can't do it, okay?
Here you go.
This might suck.
2, 1, 2. Two fills. So 2 fills.
So it's just like a lot.
Yeah.
And like this. It's sick, but it's not leading into something like that snare roll. like that's building on
Sure,
intensity.
sure.
Right. Yeah, I think like, what's interesting is like even if you hear the original tracks, like you go to play back and then you solo the function, the transitions to the big ones, like it's an 8-bar phrase that's like literally the same thing, and then the last like 3 to 2 bars you're adding like a 16th kick, and then the last bar you're adding that like fill or something to the big open washy chorus.
Yeah, so that's actually something I think is really important to hit on is like builds in general.
Yes.
They're like maybe not a huge thing in other genres of music. Like they'll usually be the transition like a bar or two. But in worship music, like they're super fundamental to a lot of the songs. We're starting to see builds that are like 8+ bars. And so I think as a drummer is like being intentional about like, okay, how am I going to space this out? Like, what can I start with so that I don't hit the climax of my build before I'm at the end of it? And so if you're just like, everything is doing 16th notes and you have nowhere to go from there, and then say we're playing with Reed and he goes like this and he says, do it again. It's like, okay, what do you do now?
Yeah.
Right.
And so like making sure like you're always leaving yourself like somewhere to go, and you're not hitting the climax of your build too early. Just being super intentional about like, hey, when do I start 16th notes on the snare? When do I start 16th notes on the ride? When do I go to 8ths on the kick?
Yeah.
Is like a super big thing.
Is there like, again, not a drummer question, like, is it possible to overplay builds?
Yeah, I think so. I think overplaying, it could probably be two things. First of all, you can probably start your dynamics like too early. Like if you're at, say that last bridge on that song, and you're just like all in on everything right away, like I would say that would be overplaying. I would say a big thing too is like with builds, they have that dynamic of like do 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 do. And so a lot of times fills are really disrupting in a build. And so I would say that would be a thing of like overplaying is like if you are stopping your build to do a fill, then you're taking away from that building tension.
Yeah. You're distracting the momentum. Absolutely. Yeah. Just to kind of like dumb it down for me, at least like one thing I've been realizing about this style that it does build, it's like this funny, like open, because, it's that open feel, but you might be like quarters on the ride and then 8ths, like your ride and your kick are like matching together, and then your snare is like doubling that or something like that. And then at some point they match and then they double again kind of deal. Can you just like play what that common build is like?
Yeah. Do you want to do like the third bridge again, or the last bridge of that?
I Speak Jesus?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll do maybe the A will be like how it is and how it should be.
What do you mean the A?
Like A and B.
Okay, got it. So all 8 bars, just so I want to understand. 8 bars of A, 8 bars of B.
Or just do like 4 bars and then we'll stop and repeat.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so they like end up lining up and doubling as you get closer to the end of that.
Yeah, so the first thing that I'm doing is I'm doing 8th notes on the kick and the ride,
right,
but I'm doing 16th notes on the snare. And then from there, like near the end of the build, I'll go 16th notes on the kick. And then like the ride, when you jump to 16th notes, like that is really the big like dynamic shift to tension building. And so if you start that too early, then you'll end up with a build. So you want to try it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we'll try the same thing. Like this will be like.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Okay,
like,
good.
Yeah.
Here we go. 2 bars. 1, 2. You're like,
So I don't even need to play the whole thing.
I'm incredibly stressed already.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah.
you're
like,
no longer building tension. You're giving me anxiety.
Yeah. I'm just full of tension. There's nothing.
Yeah, it's just like, oh gosh, he's already there, and like we're not at the end yet.
Right.
And so it can do the opposite of like a relaxing tension release. It can also almost be like a, oh, what's going on tension release.
Right. Yeah, and then I think the last part that I want to hit on this style, at least what's coming to mind, are like this 16th symbol things. It's like this new thing everyone's
those
into.
washy cymbals.
Yeah, but okay,
sections,
even before I get there, this new style of music is doing 3 bridges. Like 3 bridges? Are you kidding me?
Always.
Yeah.
I know.
Like, who's got 3 bridges in them? These new kids
give me
do,
4.
or whatever. Yeah,
I want 4.
it's crazy. So anyway, dialing
Well,
back.
it's 3 and a reprise after the chorus,
and a
right?
reprise afterwards, right? So anyway, let's go to this like 16th symbol sort of thing. You know, like what tunes are doing this right now?
Yeah.
I mean, we do it on the blood when we play live.
do it on the blood. Yeah.
I would say, yeah, Give Me Jesus is a big one. The Blood.
Let's just do it on the blood right now.
I don't. Do they do it in the track?
Let's just do it.
They don't.
Yeah, they don't do it, but we modify it to do it.
Where do we do it? We do it in what, a reprise chorus?
No, in the bridge, in the reprise bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like let's do a big interlude, right? I can't change it from here, but a 4-bar big interlude into those like 16th symbol things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's do it.
Sorry, that was 1 bar, 2 bars. 1, 2, 4-bar instrumental.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like another part that is usually it's at a reprise, you know, because now we're on the 10th bridge for some weird reason.
I know. And the only tension we're just
so it's like how do we recreate that tension?
Right.
What's like kind of like suck everything back in and have these like cymbals kind of lead that.
And bass and guitar.
Like, everyone's chunking on
right.
16s for sure.
I think this is a big thing too about knowing your band as well. Like if your bass player and lead guitar player are not going to commit, like it's a dangerous thing to do because it's like, oh, what is the drummer? What is the drummer doing? He's just like spamming cymbals. And so your bass player needs to do, you know, adding that tone hammer and micro synth and all that stuff. But there's a few different ways you can play it. You can play it on the top of the ride and the hi-hat. I think Give Me Jesus has like a little more washiness, like played on the crashes and stuff like that. But ultimately the goal with this kind of thing is it's just like big and washy. Like you don't really want articulation here. You want your drums to just be like shh, just massive, like it's pouring rain. That's kind of the tone that I would be going for.
Yeah, usually like the MD will be like cymbals or whatever, you know? 16 cymbals. I don't know. It's usually like this like last minute call or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that just okay, got it. That just goes like to, you know, like the style. That's something newer, right? Like maybe like a year or 2 or something like that.
Yeah, like in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
It's also important to keep in mind, similar to like hits, how often you're doing them. I would say if you're doing them more than once in a set, it's just like really exhausting. Like, now if the song calls for it, sure. But if it's like you're throwing it in there, like I wouldn't be doing it more than once a set. I even would think like, in terms of like the church itself, like I don't want to do it 2 weeks in a row because it's like just so much energy going out. And it can be like, whoa.
I mean, I don't know if any of you guys are like X Games people, but I remember I went to X Games with my dad, and I remember seeing like we went and saw dirt bikes do tricks and stuff. And so like this first guy does a backflip. I'm like, dude, that's crazy! Like he did that, you know. And the next guy came up, and he did a backflip too. And I was like, oh, it's not that impressive.
Yeah,
and then guess the next like 5 guys just like whipped a backflip, and I was like, oh, that's like. The bar is here now, you know. It used to be
I
up
can
here,
do that.
and now it's like, oh, like, and so like if you like, spam those symbols, like it's really easy to be like, oh, like that, we're here again, you know.
Yeah, hits, cymbals, and fills, I would say, are the 3 things that it's like really easy to overdo.
Yeah.
And then it's just like at some point it's like, oh, this is kind of lame now.
Yeah, the one thing I'm remembering that like this style, you touched on this a little bit. It's like about the tone that's being produced, like all of these drums. You know, you said it has a bunch of reverb on it, you know, like the tone really comes from its processing, you know, so like we tune the drums, we get them ready, we like collaborate with Nick front of house over there, but a lot of it is shaped both at the source, but also like heavily with the front of house engineer. So it's like you're saying, you got to consider how much you're playing these like instruments.
Yeah, I played a lot with like mixing, and so I realized like a lot of your tone comes from like EQ and processing, and so like at the drums themselves, like my kind of goal behind it is like I want to maximize like how much actual tone I'm getting out of them. But if there's like weird overtones and stuff like that, usually like I'll collaborate with whoever's on front of house and see if we can take that out there, because you can always like remove certain frequencies in a mix, but it's really hard to add like resonance back into a tom. And so that's kind of my philosophy, is like I want them to be resonant and be the right pitch. And if there's weird overtones, like I'll collaborate with front of house.
Yeah, like when you start getting those basketball toms, you know.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, or a little bit of like, you know, overtone kind of ringy stuff. Because if you just kill it at the source, oftentimes you'll kill the tone as well,
Right.
And then you just get like dead.
Nick, would it be possible to like have the drums fully off and then just fading them in, just so that we can hear the source and then hearing it like through the speakers? So like maybe starting it with it off, and then we could just fade it in as it goes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they still have the same essence, like they sound like the drums, but the processing adds a lot more to it than like you expect, and that's why it really requires that space in the parts.
I mean, I think about that snare verb that's on it too, you know, like if we're like spamming the snare at like 100 volume.
Yeah, imagine the snare roll at 100%.
Yeah, dude, it's the verb.
Dude,
It's crazy.
Like, couldn't even.
right. Yeah, but you wouldn't know that's happening in your ears, you know, but like that's exactly the processing is making a lot of stuff happen.
Yeah, and I think just kind of to touch on this again, going back to like the parts that you're playing with that in mind, like you'll notice a lot of times like that first chorus and that third chorus will be the same groove. I know I already said this, but with all this in mind, it's like if you strip it back, if you take off the ride cymbal, your kick and your snare are doing the same thing. And so if you notice your kick and the snare are playing a bunch more notes, then like maybe it's worth going like, okay, is this making a good effect on the PA or not? Or is this just going to make it really muddy with reverb and all that stuff in mind?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so just kind of like, you know, I want to move on to the next section, but like that first idea, like you are the leader of the band, right? You control the dynamics of what's going on, and because we have this reference, this expectation to play like the record, like we're gonna, you know, like deliver that for all the bands, and we're gonna lead that as like drummers. I'm not a drummer. I'm just saying we or whatever, you know. So you guys are gonna really lead that, you know, like as a worship leader, like. I sense that a lot, like from drummers. I'm asking you guys like a bunch of stuff, like give me this, give me that, give me this. You know, it's like I understand that like my role is like leading the direction of the song, but I can't do that without you. You know, it's like if you want to do if you like if you don't want to do that, it's not going to happen, just by nature of how like the band works. So and then like what we were just doing right now is giving examples of the style. Like you guys have been listening to this like a lot, you've been playing this style, this song for a long time, or this genre for a long time. And I just want to like really say this like clearly. It's like changed. It's changed from the past. It's currently changing, so we want to use the resources of like the playback for soloing, like the videos that we post online, because it's not about mostly like getting the exact part down, but it's everything that comes with the exact part. The right articulation, the right dynamic, the confidence between sections and sections because you're a leader, the reliability on delivering from section to section because you're leading the band. We expect that, and so does the band. So like let's move on to that last part, and it's going to sound like a broken record, but it says this, like you identify and replicate the song's drum parts, dynamics, and tone. Again, we start with the same reference, every one. So when we are going to like dissect these parts, when we kind of learn to embody them, we're going to break out later in the future, like the near future, like this is a challenge like for all of us, and also like we're gonna keep each other accountable in this, but like this is a very primary function as well. It's like, well, you identify the parts of the drums and the dynamic and the tone. It's your responsibility to hear it, to digest it, and to search for it. As like a lead guitar player as well, oh man, I can't tell you how long like I was searching for tone, and I'm still searching for tone. Is it the right guitar? Are these the right pickups? Can I buy new pedals? It's like I'm listening to the tones that are being produced in this like genre, and I've taken up the responsibility. Like, hey, I'm gonna do this. I'm going to put myself into this. And we're kind of asking that of you guys to do as well. But on a realistic level, and what we want to do is we really want to maximize the unity we have as a band, right? It's like you don't often play with the same bass player. You don't often play with the same keyboard player, with the same lead guitar player. So when you come and you play with someone different, being reliable in that sense that, hey, everyone knows you're going to deliver on the drum parts, the dynamics, and the tone is going to build that confidence in your role.
Max, this is a question for you, and I think it's probably a Ray too. So like I'm preparing for the weekend, and I'm like gonna learn praise, right? So I'm learning praise, I'm practicing on the drums, hearing the playback, and then all of a sudden I come across this YouTube video of Ish Melton playing praise, and it's super sick. Like he's doing stuff that like is not on the track. Can I bring that to rehearsal?
Okay, I would say two things with that. First of all, is communication with your worship leader or band director is like really big. We do like a different version of Awake My Soul because these guys, Ish Melton and like the Backline Resource guys, they did it, and so somebody sent it to them and was like, hey, let's do this. And I think that's really cool because it's a example of like creativity and like changing it up and doing something new. But it also is like in a manner that is still making sure you're trustworthy. And so if I was to just learn it like that track and I show up and played it, like they would be like, what are you doing? So just like communicating ahead of time, like, hey, I saw this thing. Can we try this out? Like get their opinion on it. Like I said, ultimately, it's the worship leader's vision that you are executing. It's not your own. So I'd say like that is probably the big thing. And then like making sure you're trying it out in the rehearsal too is like huge. Like you don't really want to be like, oh, I had this idea, let me try it out in service, because a lot of times like there's pre-recorded percussion tracks and stuff like that that are like kind of synced to what the drums are doing. And so if we decide like, I don't want to hit this build here, or I want to accent this different beat, and there's like a really big tambourine hit, it might sound like the track's just playing a random part and like we're off. And so I'd say like, yeah, communicate with the worship leader and try it out in rehearsal.
Totally. And I think about this with like, even like keyboard players and guitar players do the same thing. So like, when we play Refiner, right, there's a Maverick City version that has a lot of piano happening, and then there's the version that is on Planning Center. I think it's by Integrity Music, and it's a lot more in the style of how we play here. And so it's just like, oh man, like it's the same song. Like I might as well like play the busy part because it's like cool and challenging, And then you get to rehearsal and it's like too much happening, And then the question of, hey, can you go back to what is on the track? And it's like, oh, actually, I didn't prepare that, so
learn the original. Like that's the big thing. Is like, is like, yeah, if I'm gonna try something cool and they're like, yeah, let's try it out, and it doesn't work, like if I don't have a place to fall back on, then it puts the whole band at jeopardy because I don't know what I'm doing then. And so, yeah, just like making sure I know what's expected of me to know, but also like I express creativity ahead of time is like a super good way to kind of get both of those things.
Yeah, it really does speak to collaborating, right? So because we want to do that Awake My Soul, dude, I'm gonna send that to the bass player, the keys player, the lead player. It's like, oh yeah, this is a different feel. I want to be aware of that, because then they're thinking we're gonna deliver on this new feel. Or we're at least going to try this together. So yeah, I think that's a really great thing. On the document, whatever, on the second page, you don't have to pull it out, but it says like we're going to like grow in skill, preparation, and memorization. So like these songs, for the most part, like they don't change, and especially when we find a Rocky Peak way of doing it, we do it the Rocky Peak way, so and that speaks to like the memorization part. But when it comes to like learning parts, what kind of process do you go through?
Yeah, so I have a pretty specific way that I learn parts every time I learn a song. I'll start and I'll just listen to the song. I'll listen to it like twice, and then I'll listen to it a third time, and I'll get out my notes app, and I'll take notes of how it goes. And if you guys want to see any of my notes, I can show you, but really what's important is that you make notes that are like work for you, because what I understand, everyone won't necessarily understand. So I write notes like verse, and I'll put like a dash, and then I'll put like hi-hat, snare, groove. And then I'll, do return, and I'll do like chorus, open hi-hat, snare, groove. Something that I can look to and know immediately, like, okay, this is what's going on. After I take notes and I figure out what the original drummer's doing, I'll listen through a fourth time while I'm reading it, and I'll try to like picture what the drummer's actually doing to try to see like what he's actually hitting. And if I think something's like too hard, I'll go to multi-tracks, I'll look on YouTube, I'll try to figure out, is this a percussion track behind it? Like what's going on? What is the drummer actually doing? What's gonna be in the percussion track that I don't have to do? After that, I'll try it out. I'll like play along with it. I'll try to nail it down. I'll try to play through. And if there's any like fills or transitions or moments that I missed, like I'll just go back 15 seconds, try it again. And so that's the order, is like listen through, take notes, do it again, repeat. And then that way you learn exactly what the drummer's doing on the original track.
Yeah, so like however, I don't learn actually the parts that way. I barely get to play drums, and I love playing drums, not that good, but I love playing drums, and I like do it a different way. I like memorize it, I internalize it, and you do the same thing too, but like you have this like sort of notes. So like however that is for you, like you want to memorize, or you want to make notes, or like to keep you in check, or to give you reminders, because again, like you're leading the band, and like you having the confidence of the part, and then the transition to the sections and nailing it consistently on your own practice time, nailing it consistently in rehearsal, nailing it consistently at the 5:30, at the 9, at the 11. Like, we're relying on you to deliver.
I would also say it's, in a way, it's like preparing for the worst. Like if I was to forget what happens next, like I can look down and have like the notes for what happens next. It's also super helpful because I play a lot of our camps. And so a lot of the times, like day of or like 30 minutes before, it'll be like, oh, something's happening in this camp. We need to switch the genre of the set. Like even the pastor has come up to us and be like, hey, like the Lord's putting this on my heart. Like I want to do a set like this instead. The whole set's different. And I haven't been able to practice this song. We don't have service. And so it's like, I might not remember how to play this perfectly. So I'll look back from 2 years ago and I'll have notes of how the song goes. Even though I trust that I'll know it, it's just like I have this to fall back on at all times.
I mean, it's like how a lead guitar player who has programmable stuff can make banks of songs. And like, say we're in a situation, it's this bank, we're at praise, or whatever. There's been so many times, that, especially at camps like that, like, we can't, like, and the Holy Spirit's moving at this stuff, and so like we're following where God's leading us, But yeah, I think when I prepare drums, I'm just kidding. But no, more than anything, like I was so like, I mean, just thankful for the time we live in. The fact that we have playback like is such a gift. Like the fact that we can solo the drum part stem, like. And just listen to it, like it's like such a blessing, Before it was like, oh, we have planning center and we have to like listen to an auto-pitched version of the song, and like it's like super low, and you're trying to hear over the guy who's like, "You make me brave," it's like you're trying to hear the drums and it's like barely, you can't even hear it, and so like with the with the playback, it's awesome that we can like solo it. Also, the fact that we can have like the playback remote and have the track right next to us is like a huge like blessing. Like just as a reminder, you're like looking over, you see the waveform, you're like, we're big, let's do it. I just think that's like so helpful. What a great time that we get to play drums. That
I think a big thing with that too, like being able to actually solo the multi-tracks. I didn't really. I talked to this a little bit, but it's like hearing the hitting technique that the drummer is using, like how they're actually playing the drum. You really weren't able to do that without multi-tracks, because a lot of times there's like a big open washy groove and there's a tambourine going on. And so you have that kind of high pierce, like pushing sound, but that's not coming from the drums. Right. And so if you can solo that in the multi-track and see like, oh, the drummer is actually playing like a ride cymbal sort of on its edge, like a little further down on the stick, being really washy, and he's not playing a hi-hat groove, then you'll be here on the day on Sunday or Saturday or whenever you're playing, and you'll be able to like play that moment a lot better and replicate those parts.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a question about snare technique.
Okay.
Like, how do we play the snare in a CCM context?
Good question. As you can see, okay, yeah, that's a good view. I'd say the snare in like big washy open sections is really just defined by like intense hitting, not a lot of notes. And so I'm just gonna do like a couple hits, just kind of go up, and just kind of go up the dynamic level and just kind of show how it would usually sound. So I want to show you guys something here. So these are my sticks that I usually use. So if you look at the screen, you can see they're like really messed up. Like it looks like a dog was chewing on this thing. Right. This is how most of my sticks look. And that's really because when I'm hitting the snare, I'm doing what's called a rim shot. And so what this is pretty much just producing the maximum amount of volume possible. What you want to be careful with is if sometimes you can do a rim shot where it really chokes the snare. And I'm going to try to show like both types of rim shots real quick. So A will be like how I usually do it. B will be like choking it. And so yeah, when it chokes it, it's kind of like further back on the stick up here. It really chokes the tone. You lose the volume a lot. But if you do it kind of right here, center of the stick, hit it hard, just practice consistency, you'll get a lot of volume.
Yeah, and usually you hit the middle of the snare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
That's why I got that ring. For me, I'm like, I love that it's right there. The middle of the snare is there.
yeah,
So,
and you can see like
yeah,
most
like,
of the like
here.
darkness is like right
First
in
of
the
all,
center.
that's Chad, most of the darkness, and he's got good groupings. Like, look at that. Like, they're really good in the center. So
Let's go, Chad.
yeah.
He doesn't wash his hands. Yeah.
Really dirty hands.
All those snacks in the green room. Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions
questions?
about anything?
Yeah, what's next?
Yeah.
Solis.
What's the typical like tuning for CCM?
Okay. So mostly just like low. Low, envision like a cannon going off, like just like a shotgun, like big. But also you want it like pretty resonant, not super slappy. So like as low as you can while maintaining resonance and maintaining its own place in a mix. So we kind of worked on this tuning ahead of time. This is like pretty ideal. It's not like perfect, but this is like pretty close to where we'd want it. I'd say another big thing is like we base a lot of our tunings off of like what the guys at like Bethel are actually doing. So they use the TuneBot, and they have like top and bottom head frequencies. And so you can actually figure out how exactly their drums sound in real life. And a lot of the times we're used to just hearing it in a mix, like maybe like on a record or something. But when you hear their drums like in real life without the mics and stuff, they're actually a lot more open and maybe a lot higher than you'd think. And so like this snare is at a really good spot. You'd expect it to maybe be lower, but you want it to have a lot of attack. And so I think that like attack is like the big thing. What else we got?
Yes, I have a question about. Sorry. I know we have a lot of questions.
No,
but,
dude, if you two want to just ask questions, go for it. I'm loving
No, yeah,
it.
yeah,
We're just having a conversation.
Yeah, come on. Cymbal technique.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly just like on just like how you crash the cymbal. I feel like is like the most important thing I'm asking. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So in a lot of contemporary Christian music, you will use more of the neck or shoulder, as they'll call it, or like the edge of the stick on the cymbals. You don't want it to be like super overpowering. You want it to just be washy. Same thing with the ride. Is I actually like to use my technique as sort of a difference in dynamics. And so say we have like a ride and a snare groove on like a chorus 2. A lot of times like I'll play the top of the ride for more of that pingy sound. And then for like a chorus 3, like I'll play the edge. I'm gonna like demonstrate that really quick, just those two different dynamics. And so yeah, a lot of those techniques are borrowed with the hi-hat too. Instead of hitting it right on top, they hit it on the edge a lot, sort of to emulate that like shaker sound. So yeah, that is really what we mean when we're talking about like washiness and openness.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So since the cymbals are taking up like half the screen, I'm wondering like, is there like a certain like, so if I were to like, if I'm buying my own cymbals or if I'm like a young drummer, like what are there, does the size, like what kind of sizing are we looking at when it comes to worship drumming and stuff?
Yeah. Okay. So again, the tone we're kind of going for is like Bethel music. And so just looking at what they're using like really big, really washy cymbals. So they're using like a 24-inch ride. This is a 22-inch crash and a 24-inch crash, which is exactly what Bethel's using. It's huge, it's massive, and it's like really not normal. I wouldn't really even recommend it for like every scenario, but I think it's like the closest you can get to their sound as possible. They use 16 or 17-inch hats. Every once in a while, you'll see a drummer use 18-inch hats in worship. Too big for me, but I like the 16s or the 17s. But yeah, they just use really big cymbals, pretty dark, but definitely not like dry, because you want your cymbals to have like sort of a long sustain, be really washy. But yeah, a lot of good places to find what drummers are actually playing. I think there's a website called like Worship Drummer or something like that. But they interviewed like every famous worship drummer. So like Bethel's, Elevations, Hillsongs, like Upper Rooms, everyone's drummer, and they got their exact rundown of gear. So it's like heads, toms, sizes, woods, cymbals, sticks, all that stuff. And so if you ever want like to figure out, hey, how are they getting their tone? Like just look at them. And so that's what I've done, and I've just picked out cymbals that kind of match that.
You think we'll see like 24 rides on a hi-hat someday? Yeah.
I hope not. This is as big as I would want to go. I've played a 26-inch ride. It's too much. But I feel like this is kind of a sweet spot. It really, you still have articulation, but like you get the big deep tones. So Lise, I know there's stuff cooking in there. What you got? What you got?
Yeah.
This is it.
Okay. What kind of sticks would you like recommend, like the best, or like your preference?
Okay. I don't think there's necessarily a best. It's a lot of preference. I love ProMark because I've tried Vader and Vic Firth and all that, and they break a lot easier, for me, at least. Other people have different experiences. But I use the 5A, usually long. A lot of times 5B is like really thick, or if you use like 2B. And at some point, like you gotta think about like, are the cymbals okay? Like, am I gonna be breaking these cymbals if I'm buying like heavier, bigger sticks? And so, yeah, that was kind of a big thing for me for like downsizing stick. I also think like the material type, like I used to use nylon tip. You get like a little pingy over sound, which isn't like usually what they would use in worship music. So I use a wood stick. I just kind of like the softness of it. And yeah, this size works well for me.
Cool. All right.
I have one more question.
Okay.
One more question.
Yeah.
I know. Top 3 worship drummers, like Max Charles, top 3.
Your top 3 or the top 3?
His top 3. Maybe I'll give you a Mount Rushmore. How about 4? Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going Ish Melton. We're going Joe Volk, David Whitworth, and then Austin Davis would be the bonus. Austin Davis plays on like all the Carrie Job stuff. He's like probably the best. Him and Joe Volk are just like insane. David Whitworth, little like plays simple stuff, but just like kind of backbeat stuff. But it's so sick. So Ish Melton is a good example of like technique, but also like being able to kind of reserve himself. So yeah, top 4. And those are guys that I watch a lot for like inspiration for how to do worship drumming and fills and stuff.
I'm only a little offended you didn't pick me, but that's fine.
My bad.
Oh, Logan has a question. Logan came from the back.
Oh gosh.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. My name is Logan. I'm a big fan. Yeah, so we oftentimes we're introducing songs that may not have pre-existing drum parts.
That's good.
And I'm curious about your approach to creating something that might not exist currently in the style that would be appropriate to the ministry we might be playing it in.
That is really good. I would say learning the parts, just like the track, like I talked about earlier, is really important because you build that library. And so when you have a lot of songs in your library, when you come across a song that doesn't have drums, you have a lot to fall back on in that style. And so if you're not super familiar, if you don't have a big library built up, you're not really going to be totally certain what to do. And so I'd say, yeah, build the library. A lot of times it's also a collaborative process with like Ray. Like you'll text ideas back and forth or read and you'll kind of figure out something to do. But yeah, just pay attention to the chords, what they're doing, how the dynamics of the other instruments are, and try to choose something that you would hear in a worship song that the church plays. And if it's like, oh, I've never heard this kind of thing, like maybe it's too out there. So I think that's like pretty good. Would you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. As not a drummer, and you guys know the main service guys, like I'll send you things like, oh, this is what I'm thinking. Here's like a tom thing, or here's this open thing, and I'm like, make it better since I'm not a drummer. You know, clean this up, make it sick, make it yours, make it solid. But it usually starts from like the knowledge of the style of worship drumming. So yeah.
Then just trying to fill that criteria of like, hey, is it ambient? Is it open? And think through stuff like that. It's a big thing.